inviting. I'm the president of LeBlanc C&E here in Seattle, and it's my distinct pleasure to moderate a panel for Seattle Hempfest 2020 online that includes a number of grow experts. And what we'd like to do is to have an introduction for those who want to grow themselves, not so much in a commercial sense, but at a family community level. So without further ado, I'd like to go round robin here. Who is who? And let's start it off. Someone
I'll
go.
start off.
Okay.
My name's Juddy. I'm owner-operator at Blazin Productions. It's a licensed 502 facility up in Bellingham, Washington. We focus on sustainability from using 100% LED lighting. We've created water reclamation systems, and I've currently switched from a liquid nutrient line to a dry nutrients, kind of making super soils, and trying to keep our carbon footprint in check as we go along this energy-consuming industry.
So China, you're part of Trailblazing. Can you add to what Juddy just shared?
I've been really excited about the soil amendment nutrient line. This has been my bag, and we're going on how many years now with just beneficials and preventatives instead of using any kind of pesticide for pest control. And I'd like to talk a bit, if we get the chance, about just sanitation and making sure you keep your grow clean, because that helps the whole community.
Sure. Kyle.
Hi, everybody. I'm Kyle Kushman, and well, you know, homegrown is really my thing now. I'm working really hard with web developers. We've recently launched a new website called homegrowncannabisco.com, co like company. And there I've been doing dozens and dozens of hours of home tutorials and how to set up your first grow rooms. And coincidentally, they also are very big into seed sales, and they have a really large library of regular but mainly feminized genetics from around the world that they have been gathering for a number of years. And so finally, I have some place to recommend people go for good seeds and also for some edutainment.
Cool. Danny Danko, no stranger to this crowd.
Yeah, first I'd like to say thank you for having me. Hempfest, Seattle Hempfest is an incredible event that I love participating in person, and I'm honored to participate virtually. My name is Dan Vinkovetsky. I wrote under the name Danny Danko at High Times for 18 years, ending as the senior cultivation editor, with Kyle as one of my mentors there for sure. I'm the author. You held it down, man. You held it down. I'm also the author of the official High Times Field Guide to Marijuana Strains and the recent Cannabis, A Beginner's Guide to Growing Marijuana, available on Amazon and eBay. And also now moved on from High Times, and I'm now the editor of Northeast Leaf magazine in conjunction with Leaf Nation, which includes Northwest Leaf in Washington, Oregon Leaf, California Leaf, Alaska Leaf, and Maryland Leaf. And now we are planting a flag in the Northeast. So very exciting, and I'm always been a big proponent of home growing. I think that's the way you're going to get the highest quality product for the lowest price. And that's who I am. So thank you for having me.
So I'd like to frame the discussion for those who are considering growing their own, who need a few tips. Number one, it's a photo period sensitive plant. So you hear 18/6, 12/12. In the veg period, you need 18 hours of light, 6 hours of darkness. When you flip into flowering, you're talking about 12/12 because the plant thinks it's autumn and time to make seeds. The other takeaway is feeding. During veg, the plant likes nitrogen. So when you look at the NPK on either your compost tea, your soil mix, or whatever you're using, you need nitrogen during veg. Hempfest for me being the third weekend in August, here in Seattle at 46 degrees north latitude, it's that flip period. So by the beginning of August, no more compost tea, cut the nitrogen, and look at phosphorus. So Home grow. It all starts with genetics, either a seed or a clone. Round robin. How do you get, if you haven't never done it before, if you're a new home grower, how do you start out? It's sort of a catch-22.
Well, we're selling clones to patients, so that's one way to start out.
Right. If you know someone who's already doing it, having them doing vegetative reproduction, that is cloning an existing plant, a plant called a mother, cutting the stem with or without a growth hormone, forcing that cutting to grow roots, which they then pass on and share to you.
Sharing is caring.
Yeah, ultimately, if you can get clean, healthy clones, that's really one of the greatest ways to get started, because you're skipping the whole germination,
Right.
and figuring out whether that plant is male or female, and all of that process. Although you do need to know the source of your clones, and because a lot of things can travel with those clones. So you just have to be careful, make sure to quarantine them if you're not sure about their cleanliness. But there's also germinating seeds, and there's feminized seeds, autoflowering seeds, regular seeds, lots of different options out there and different ways to do that. But ultimately, if you want to be self-sufficient, you're going to want to have your own mother plant at some point and be able to take clones off of it. The benefits being that what the genetics are, and also that the plants all behave in the same manner. So when you're growing indoors, you want that level canopy, and I think the best way to do that is to grow from clones off of a mother plant that you've vetted and that is a female and all of that. So that's really the way to get started. Either germinating seeds or acquiring clones.
So I'm going to add something that might seem off the mark, but let's take a step back from the crop that you want to grow right now. I come from the food side of things, permaculture gardens and all that other stuff. One of the nice things about growing for yourself is you have control top to bottom. You grow what you like. You can share that and keep it going. The other thing is, there are a lot of modern hybrids being developed now, but if you look at vegetables and fruits, it's often home growers and seed savers who keep vintage heirloom things, what we call land races in the cannabis world, alive and available, because big ag wants a lot of the same thing, and modern tastes may not be what the plant offered a mere 50 years ago. So myself, I'm looking for the stuff that I grew up with. What's that? I'm 66, got out of high school in 72. I'm looking for Jamaican, Thai stick, things that I can't find in a dispensary. So one reason you're growing as a citizen is to keep the plant genetic base as wide and diverse as possible.
Absolutely, and I was very sincere when I said sharing is caring.
Yes.
I've been in this way of life now for 30 plus years, and between arrests and having to move, I always made sure to share my genetics, knowing that if I ever needed to, I could get them back. Right. And
backup.
So right away off the bat, I hope that everyone's smart enough to know that if you get what you think is your favorite plant or your favorite clone, start sharing it immediately. And then if anything happens, you can always get it back. And the other thing I wanted to say to that you were mentioning, Jerry, about the old school strains is I haven't met too many hybrids that I really, really have fallen in love with. Some of the stuff is over hybridized and it gets a little bland to me. And there's kind of like a middle high, right? There's like your sativa high. Oh, there's the camera. There's your sativa high, and then there's your indica high, and then there's your middle high. And the middle high doesn't really do too much for me as far as exciting me. So I tend to look for the older strains, the land races, not necessarily the land races, but the ones that are not so hybridized, right, that are really strong one way or the other.
Right.
I think one of the things that kind of goes along with that, Kyle, is really more of the different terpene profiles that people should be looking for. And one thing that's happened with all of this really kind of breeding for really high THC has resulted in a majority of the strains being dominant in myrcene. And that's kind of that middle high I think you're talking about. It's just dominated with that. And so that's something that we try and look at here at Trailblazer, is trying to have as many different dominant terpene profiles as possible, so that the people can find their jam and get what really sings to their body.
I went
So
to
important.
a discussion of genetics, and someone who knew a lot about it, cannot name drop, I'm afraid, said that there has been several really severe genetic bottlenecks where they used a single male to pollinate a broad range of early strains, and the result was something that had a very good growth habit. So especially if you're doing indoor grows, the plant behavior means a lot. Danny, you mentioned that. So you want something that's going to be shortish and have big dense colas, and so that was such a winner for an industrial grow setup, that a lot of the landrace strain got crossed with it. So now it's hard to find the original genetics.
Yeah, I mean, I would second that as well. What China's saying about that bottleneck, it's really polyhybridization, and what was a desirable trait in the 80s and 90s is no longer as important. That bag appeal and yield and short stocky plants that we loved back in the day. Now, with people making concentrates, it's really become about the essential oil, and it's about the terpene profile.
You need to look for film canisters. Find you a baby boomer. I have what I
Those
call a
hidden
modest seed bank.
When was the last time there was any film in that?
Who cares?
Right.
Yeah.
But the point being that that there were those bottlenecks, but that's starting to change now that, especially with concentrate production, people aren't interested in bag appeal. They're interested in surface area and essential oil production, and what that tastes like, what that feels like, what that smells like. And those, that I think is far more important than THC levels and bag appeal and short and stocky, all the things. So what is a desirable trait, and what breeders are looking for, and what phenotypes we are picking out when we're growing seeds out has changed. And I think that's very important, because again, this all happened in Holland in the 80s and 90s. And like China said, there's one male that basically was sprinkled on all the available female plants, and that became those building blocks. And when the building blocks are bottlenecked, that means everything else will be bottlenecked down the line.
So I've decided to grow at home for the first time. Can you talk me through both indoor and outdoor basics? I don't know what to do. So how do I get started if I'm that beginning home grower?
Like putting it in indoor and outdoor as two separate categories, because I think a lot of people want to focus on the indoor, but outdoor is traditional. So you pick different plants for those different scenarios.
Yeah, for sure.
Very
for
important.
sure. And really the happy medium between the two is a greenhouse, because you get the best of both worlds. You get the added benefit of using sunshine when the sun is out, but if you have supplemental lighting and light deprivation, you get the benefits of creating any season you want. Inside the greenhouse, you can extend seasons, so you can grow longer flowering sativas right into October and November in some places. And you don't have the dust and the dirt and sand and pests that you get when you're growing entirely outside.
That is absolutely right. And
so the ability to control the environment inside the greenhouse and also have light, supplementation and deprivation gives you all the tools you need really to basically grow year round in some places.
The pest problem though is, I feel like it's almost easier to do one or the other pest wise, because with that hybrid greenhouse thing, you never get a hard freeze, and so stuff overwinters, and you can have last year's mites.
It is interesting. It is interesting to note, though, that the overwhelming majority of the real high dollar and high tech facilities that are being built now are all hybrid facilities. And they're taking advantage of the best of both indoor and out. But China, you're very right to point out that we're talking about the home grower specifically, and you're probably better off choosing one or the other over just building a Home Depot available plastic structure in your backyard. There are a lot of considerations in both, you know.
If you want to bleach your boots going in, it helps.
Right. And I always recommend a simple grow tent kit. You can buy these kits now that are a tent. One person can set it up, one person can take it down, a variety of different sizes, different lighting systems. Some have hydro systems in them. I don't recommend that for beginners. I think hand watering plants in containers in a soilless mix is probably the best, most forgiving thing for a beginner. But the climate control is really the thing, because if you have hot light inside a small tent, it's going to dry out the air, it's going to heat up the air, and really it's your responsibility to keep those temperatures down under 80 degrees and to keep the humidity levels, around 50%, relative humidity, depending on when, whether it's vegetative or flowering or cloning. But right around that. And if those levels fluctuate all the time and are in disarray, the plants will react in the same way. They're not going to be happy. So climate control is very important, and one of the things a lot of beginners have a lot of trouble with.
People want to focus on lights and newts, and I always say they'll grow under anything. Get an HVAC system. Get a DHU. You need these.
Right.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that I'd like to chime in on with regards to, people getting started and how to do it, there's a million ways to grow cannabis, and there's not one right way. The right way is what works for your environment. I mean, if you're living in an apartment in a city, you don't have a greenhouse option. You can scratch that. You don't, probably don't want to have them on your, third-story deck overlooking 2nd Street. And so, I think a lot of people are going to be indoors, but there's every grow that I've set up has been a little bit different because it's based on, okay, what do you have to work with? Where are you? And so that's really going to dictate how you're going to do it and the path you're going to go. So, don't think that there's just one right way that you have to do it.
I'm gonna bring up an old adage that is really not so much an adage anymore. It's really just kind of funny, I think. But back in the day when I started growing, there was a saying for outdoors in New York. And that was, if you grow outdoors in New York, you have to grow 5 plants for every one you want to keep. You have to have one for the animals. You have to have one for the thieves. You have to have one for the cops. You have to have one for Mother Nature. And that leaves So I didn't like those odds. And that's what made me start as a grower indoors. And like Juddy was saying, you gravitate towards a style, just like you're going to gravitate towards a strain or a plant, a cultivar that you like. And so the most important thing is just to get growing. And don't spend a whole lot of time worrying about the investment, if that's a worry. Just go get a bag of dirt and a couple of plastic pots and some seeds or a clone and start growing. If you don't have a light, throw it out back. Cover it up with some mosquito netting. Do it really simply if that will get you growing. If you have, and if you can get past that and you can give yourself a budget, well, that's when you're going to start thinking about, can I do a 2x2 tent? Can I do a 4x4 tent? Can I afford 1 light? Can I afford 2 lights? Do I need an electrician? So the main thing is get growing, because you will succeed. You will have a harvest. If you put a little diligence into it and some daily tending, you're going to harvest something. It won't be as much as you harvest the second time, and it won't be as much as you harvest the time after that, but it will be satisfying, and you will get to smoke your own weed.
Yeah, I mean, the best learning experience is to plant, you know, even if you start with bag seeds, just to see what happens when you plant the seeds. I'm going to just talk about 3 big mistakes that I see. The biggest basically is people keeping their lights too far away from their plants and having the plants stretch to meet the light is a big one. Overfeeding their plants, giving them too much plant food is another one, and overwatering. And with all those things, I would say, you know, you want to err on the side of caution. So, you know, lower the lights or raise the plants if you need to raise the plant if the light isn't fixed. But, you know, find that happy space, you know, that distance, and try to maintain that distance so that you're getting as much as you can out of the lights without burning the plants. Same with feeding. Start with, you know, half strength or lower of what's recommended, and then you can always bump it up. It's very easy to add, but very difficult to take it away. And watering as well. You know, lift your buckets, get an idea of what they feel like when they're filled with nutrient solution, and how much heavier they are when they're like that than when they're dried out and ready to go. And cannabis likes that, you know, wet and dry back and forth. So you never want it to just be soaking all the time. Certainly don't let it sit in stagnant water that's poured out.
And everything Danny is leading to is about observation. Observation is key. And so learning a little muscle memory in your wrists as you pick up the pot, like Danny said, for how heavy fully saturated it is. Observation to give yourself time to adjust when you lower the lights or you make adjustments. Don't make a lot of nutrient adjustments at one time. You know, and observation is really key. The plants grow pretty slowly under a low yield situation, and spend some time with your plants and get to know them, and you will get to know how quickly you need to water. Cycling is what Danny was mentioning. Cycling, wet to dry.
Right.
Pick up your pots every day. Every day you need to pick up your pots and see if they need something, and then let them run a little dry. Wait for the leaves to just tip. Read the leaves. The leaves tell you everything.
Yeah, and
I like the way we're moving along here. You know, let a plant wilt. A plant is not going to die because it wilts. And learning how light the plant can get before it wilts is very important to know that you can let your garden go without overwatering it.
Right, and that'll help you to avoid that in the future. You'll be able to recognize the signs of the leaves starting to droop and immediately add either plain water or mild nutrient solution. The fourth mistake is not being clean, and I think China can talk a little bit about that. That's you know, I can't tell you how many grow rooms I've visited where there's dead leaves on the floor, you know, dying leaves on the plants. Those are just invitations for infestations, and I think China, you could follow up on that.
I would say everybody needs to start their grow by learning a little bit about what pests look like. A single spider mite is not a thing that ever happens. You will always have more spider mites. Like, you need to see them before they get to be a problem and know what to do immediately. Like, you can't be like, oh, I think I saw a spider mite last week. That's not how you grow.
That's back to the observation, right? Because you're not just going to go in there and see if your plants need to be watered. Me, when I go into my garden, I'm kind of, without even thinking about it, I'm scanning every centimeter of every plant from top to bottom as I'm working in the plant to see if I can, oh, the camera's not working, to see if I can spot a bug or a mottled leaf or something that's been munched on, or all of those things. It's all about observation.
I only go to my plants clean. Like, I wear clean clothes when I go to my plants, and I change my clothes after before I do anything else. And I mean, I scrub up for work, but you know, you should scrub up for home too. Like, you should visit your plants right after you take a shower, because anything you track in, like, you see powdery mildew in the real world, it can get you. It can come for you.
we're talking about all this hybridized gardening, and let me give you one strict advice: never do outdoor gardening and indoor gardening at the same time. What I mean is, don't ever walk out into the grass or the field or the forest or an outdoor garden and then come into your indoor garden.
The tiny things. The way is the dust of the way. You're covered in eggs and spores and things all the time that you can't see. You just have to believe in invisible things and clean. Like wash your hands, wear clean clothes, put on a head cover before you go visit your plants. Because you're like
just throw it in there. That goes for your pets too. It just blows my mind watching dogs run through people's grow rooms. It's like,
yeah, and on that observation level, you're not just looking at the top of the plant. You want to look underneath the leaves. These are the places where those pests hide. The nodes where leaves meet branches, that's where a lot of pests like to hide. The surface of the soil, all kinds of places. So you really want to observe everything in the garden and act immediately if you discover any type of infestation. Don't let it don't give it a week or any amount of time, because some of these bugs are born pregnant and will reproduce very quickly.
When you get your seeds, get a 10 power loop. Just do it. Like, get seeds, get your loop. You need both of those. You're going to look at the bottoms of your leaves. You want to look at the surface of the soil.
I need at least a 30. Actually, I use 100 times loop. But, back to the cleanliness thing, one of the things that is always, in my estimation, is always made indoor marijuana, cannabis, so much more expensive than outdoor, was the cleanliness, was the literal fact that outdoor weed has dirt on it. Dirt and dust and grime. A good friend of mine, a good friend of mine, Todd McCormick, once made a good example. He said, take a nice clean piece of glass, a nice piece of glass, and put it outside and lay it out there just for a day and see how much dirt lands on that piece of glass. And so cleanliness on your indoor garden is very important. And that's why we're seeing, outdoor gardeners now turning to hybrid systems where everything is covered and kept clean and protected from the environment.
I have a question. So if you're setting up a home grow above and below, what kind of lights, and LED comes to mind, and what kind of soil or growing medium? I've got a spare bedroom. I've got a one light, LED light, let's say, and I've got 2 to 4 plants inside. What am I putting the plants in, and what about that light? Because, if I'm in an apartment or a group house, I don't want the meter spinning around because I've got 2 plants in the basement.
You know what I did? I brought in an electrician, and I had 240 volt electricity thrown in my our workout room with all the the equipment that nobody uses. So I pushed all the workout equipment to the side and put a couple of 4x8 tents in there, and it's been a long time since I've actually like name dropped, like brand dropped or anything, because there's so many out there and you think it might not be fair. But you know what? I'm just going to tell you what I use and what I think is really high quality. They're pretty new. They're called PhotoBio LEDs, and I really like the engineering on them. They fold up. They're really durable, and the thing with LEDs is you're going to put out a lot of money up front, maybe 3 times as much as you would over a traditional HID ballast light. But you're going to make that money back in electricity probably in the first year or pretty close to it, because you're not only saving 30% on the actual electric draw for photon to photon, or I'm not sure if that's the right scale these days, but for par lumens, for actual brightness, but you also save because these lights give off virtually no heat. So you save a lot on your HVAC bill too.
Yeah, that's unrecognized savings.
Maybe as much as 2/3 on your HVAC bill. I grow 2 harvests a year in my home just during spring going into winter going into spring, and then fall going into winter. And I don't even need any AC in my tents. It's just the perfect weather. They give off virtually no heat. So, that's my suggestion for indoor growers. If you can manage, get yourself a high quality LED light, a tent that represents the size space that you have, some dirt, some buckets, some drip trays.
Is that how to do in an apartment?
Excuse
Like,
me?
is that something you need to unplug your washing machine so you can plug in your lights, or is that something that like a regular apartment plug can do?
No, it's seriously a 630 watt LED, which replaces 1,000 watt HID. You can plug into your household
Okay.
light. It's only
Your roommates won't kill you.
It's only about 6 amps. It's like plugging in a television. It's no more than plugging in a high out, a large television, and it really gives off no more heat than a large television. Yeah.
One of the nice things about LEDs as well compared to HID is there's no infrared heat hitting the plants either, which that can really light burn from HID plants from them getting too close. You don't have to worry about that as much with an LED plant or an LED light. And instead of the normal temperature and humidity range that people were used to with HIDs, it changes a little bit without that infrared. And I go more off of the vapor pressure deficit, which is what's
Absolutely.
the temperature of the leaf surface instead of the air temperature. And it's a lot hotter under HIDs than it is under LEDs. So you can run the room a little bit warmer. You can run it a little bit more humid and be safe.
Great
Yeah.
point. And literally with the LEDs, you don't have to worry about running out of space in that 4x8 tent, because you literally can let the plants grow right up into that light, literally touching it if you underestimate a little bit, and the rest of the garden is good. Because like Juddy said, there's no infrared heat, or there's no direct heat is what it is. And you're not going to find any lamp burn from the plants growing right up into the light. So that gives you a lot of extra space in indoor and tent growing.
As for the soil, I have patients coming in asking what to do to just get started. I tell them to just use some kind of super soil. And I have a friend who grew indoors who used Fox Farms. That seemed to be fine, and you can just water them at that rate.
China, super soils are fantastic. And I even came up with a veganic super soil recipe that I have on my website, veganmatrix.net. The thing is, a lot of people don't have a lot of extra space.
Right.
So again, I'm going to go out of my way and I'm going to recommend a soil that I'm not sponsored to. It's just what I've been using for, 30 plus years. It's ProMix, Premier ProMix. They've got about 15, 20 formulas now. And the one that I've been using for almost the last decade now is HPCC. Stands for High Porosity Chunk Core. What that is little marble-sized pieces of cocoa, unshredded cocoa, literally little marble pieces that you can squeeze. They're about the density of a cork. And that gives you two really good benefits. So sphagnum, as we all know, is way better than cocoa for encouraging microbial life. And so people like to grow in sphagnum. But now you get the dual air-water holding capabilities of both the sphagnum and the cocoa. So you really can't overwater because you've got these nuggets that are always semi-dry inside. It's really just fabulous. They're the largest soil manufacturer in North America. I know a lot of people cry about peat bogs being depleted at some point. And I'm worried about the earth and worried about carbon footprint and all these things too, but just a simple fact, 2/3 of Canada and Asia are peat bogs. And so I don't think we're really gonna run out of peat. It is ancient in the next century or this century, just my own personal observation.
So something to go along with that, Kyle, is we use the ProMix as well. It's a great product, but you can reuse it as long as you don't have any problems with bugs or mildews or anything in it. We reuse it. I think we've started reusing it. We're on like our fourth run now, and
it's actually doing
just
great.
as good as the first run.
Oh, it'll get better for sure.
I would be cautious though for pest scouting. Like we're very, very careful about it. I would be very cautious.
Maybe
But then you
like
also have to feed.
grower.
That's the thing about it. It's not just economical or even ecological, because if you're talking about a multi-million-dollar indoor facility, it's really tricky to recycle and reuse. If you have space to I don't know what the proper word is. You know, if you have a batch of soil and you can put it in a nice pile somewhere and set it and recondition it.
Refreshing it, right.
We reclaim it. That's what we say we're doing.
That's a fabulous thing. But if you're living in an apartment in New York, you may not have a place to even refresh just 10 gallons of soil.
Right.
So, like Juddy said, truly, there are as many ways to grow cannabis as there are cannabis growers. And you settle into a style, methodology, both with nutrients and media that are suitable for your area, that, you know, amendments that you can readily find and easily resupply yourself with. Yeah, so don't feel required to go veganic or a certain way because somebody might like it. The most important thing is to get growing. Everybody, grow your own food, grow your own cannabis. It's one of the greatest feelings you can give yourself.
So we're running out of time here, but there's one topic that I would like to bring up in conclusion after I thank all of you for sharing family secrets and family recipes. And that topic is multifaceted. It talks about the legal status of the plant and the consequences members of our community have suffered as a result. Prohibition, the war on drugs, stop and frisk, call it what you will. We still have prisoners of war who are incarcerated for possessing, let alone growing, a plant. I believe the Caddick family has rallied around the Last Prisoner Project. Can you all speak to the social justice issues of home grow, please?
I'm going to be really quick. Drug users, you know, I'm not afraid of this verbiage and stuff, you know. Cannabis users and recreational drug users are the last segment of society that is legal to prejudice against. You know, you get caught, you're a teenager experimenting with a little bit of acid and you get caught and now your life is ruined for the rest of your life because you wanted to try expanding your mind or a little bit of cannabis and things like that. We have to change these laws and we have to change acceptance just like we do for race and gender and all of these things. Experimenting with recreational drug use, it's a normal human state that we all experience, and criminalizing it has been a complete travesty.
Can someone speak to the Last Prisoner Project for those who are listening who aren't aware of this effort?
I'll speak up just because I am working with Steve D'Angelo. He's helping us out with the homegrowncannabisco.com website, and he is the founder of the Last Prisoner Project and a good friend of mine for many years. This man is a true cannabis warrior in every sense of the word. He's fought the federal government and won. He has a beautiful dispensary in the South, in the Bay, Harborside, right, that people travel from all over the world to go visit. He provides low cost and no cost medicine and always has for underprivileged and poor people. And so I really encourage people to go check out the Last Prisoner Project. I'm not sure if it's a website just yet. I know you can find it on Instagram at Steve D'Angelo. And let's make sure that the freedom to choose what you put into your body is eventually part of the American ethos.
Soon rather than later.
Right. I'd also like to say it's really the most important issue is freeing the prisoners, expunging people's criminal records.
Right.
It really is the most important issue right now because people are making millions of dollars and companies are springing up left and right and going public. But and there's a lot of organizations. There's Last Prisoner Project, Life for Pot. A lot of people. It's just important that people that are locked up understand that we are out here fighting for them to get them released, to get their records expunged, get them back to their families. Mm-hmm. It's really outrageous that people are still, nonviolent cannabis offenders are still in prison. And to me, every gram, every ounce, every pound that is grown is a nail in the coffin of prohibition. So whether you think you're an activist or not, if you are growing for yourself, for your friends, to share, whatever it might be, even for profit, you are an activist, and you are helping to overgrow the government, and you are helping, it's a political act. Cultivation is a political act, because you're creating something out of nothing. It's modern day alchemy. You're taking light, air, food, and water and creating healing medicine that's worth its weight in gold. So it's important that people understand that. It's important that people devote some of their energy and profits to helping those prisoners be released back to their families, and to getting their records expunged so they can get transplants, so they can vote, so they can be part of society, because they never should have been locked up in the first place, and they need to know that we're out here fighting for them.
And this
Well
is the
said,
core
Dan.
value of Seattle Hempfest for the last 29 years. This really brings this conversation full circle, in that Seattle Hempfest and the communities that have sprung up around it hold the plant sacred, and these truly are prisoners of war if they're going to declare war against us. So I'd like to thank Juddy, Danny, Kyle, and China for joining us today. Again, if you've learned something, put it to good use, grow some plants, folks, but more importantly, share, love, and take care of each other. So again, my name is Jerry Whiting, Who Cares? I'd like to thank all of you who participated today. Go out and do it. If you're growing the plant, like the man said, you too are a cannabis activist.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Nice being here. Thanks.
All
Thanks,
powerful
guys.
people, liberate the plant.
Much
Happy
love,
Hempfest.
everybody.
Happy Hempfest. Much love. Keep on
Thank you,
growing.
guys, gals.
Bye.
And the land is dark.